Thank you, everyone. Hope you're having a great Identiverse. Hope you're enjoying yourselves. I appreciate you taking time to come to my session. We're going to talk a little bit today about audit, digital transformation, and how people get it confused on their journey. They evolve technology and they still do manual processes, maybe not keeping that balance of people, process, technology. My name is Gregory. I'm the Director of Technical Alliances for Omada, who provides identity access governance. With further ado, let's get into it. The agenda. I'm going to talk about digital transformation. Is it a buzzword? Don't necessarily know. It's pretty detailed when you look at it. It has three main components and three child components of each main component. And businesses don't do them all at once. They may do focused efforts. Underlying process of talking to you about why it's important to understand digital transformation is because that leads into audit. You'll see a lot of the digital transformation topics talk about technology enhancements, process enhancements, new ways to do business, new ways to interact with customers. We'll focus in on audit and we'll look at what audit is. Audit has a definition, but it also means something to people. And we'll talk about that. Then we're going to look at process review and the best way to go through process review. And I like to say the best of architectures is up for review every 3 to 5 years. I think business processes and business alignment is up about every 3 to 6 months. Ensure those processes are working and ensure your audit policies are working for you. And then I want to walk you through what a rationalized audit process looks like, getting away from the manual process and what an automated process should look like, the components of it, and what you should receive and the benefits from a rationalized audit. The end state's going to be a goal, and we'll talk a little bit about what that goal is and how you should feel very satisfied in achieving your goals and making your life easier. And then we'll have a conclusion, which is kind of a funny slide, which you'll kind of like because this deck builds on itself. Digital transformation, as I mentioned. 3 pillars. The first one is the way they transform operational processes. And each of these has a bigger talk track, so I'm not going to camp a lot on this slide. But transforming your operational processes has a lot to do with the internal IT optimization. Tear down the silos, find new ways to work, new ways to collaborate. There's software out there that does this. You've all had it been sold to you. You may have deployed it. You may have it partially deployed. You may be in the cloud, half in the cloud, hybrid, looking to go to the cloud, or still leveraging on-prem, figuring out how to get to the cloud. Transforming business models. A new way to do business. The best businesses in the world will always look for ways and new ways to enhance their business. A couple examples I can share with you. Oil and gas company, old pipelines, don't pass inspection, they push fiber through them. They become a telecommunications company. Glass company, makes pottery, makes glass. Huge glass waste. What did they do? They become one of the best fiber optics companies. That's Corning, out of Corning, New York. Businesses reinvent themselves to stay competitive and find a way to find a model that extends their business and keep reinventing themselves for the better, for their shareholders, for profit and gain. Transforming customer experience. Everybody has a smartphone now. Everybody has the digital age. The way you reach your customers, the way they want to interact with customers, how they want to push services to customers, how they sell to customers is all going to be part of digital transformation. And as you look across these 3 pillars, you can see well, there's a lot here when you start to talk about it. Is it just my own internal IT? Is it how we sell? Is it how my brand is recognized? How I touch customers? How I interact with customers? So let's drill in and look at transforming the operational process. Enablement of the workforce, O365, Slack, Google Cloud, whatever it is. A new enhanced collaboration platform. Everybody has messaging. Messaging's great. Everybody adds IM in the messaging. That's great. IM has notifications, schedule a meeting from an IM, you're starting to collaborate in a rich way. Slack, Teams, focused group efforts, bringing people together to drive a great result, but you're using technology to generate a new collaboration platform with the envisionment of having a better way to work. Drive better results, get your teams to interact better, to be more effective to drive a better result. Typically associated with technology. Process digitalization. When you talk about digitizing a process, you have a lot of manual processes. This is your ERP advancements. We have a checklist, a spreadsheet. We can do this. Manual labor tasks will transform and become automated, not just exclusive to ERP systems, but when you start to look at truly taking a manufacturing position, quality assurance, threshold measurement, introducing Internet of Things, and making decisions, rationalized decisions that take a human element out of the equation and actually put a process in its place. Okay, so that process updating and digitizing is definitely leading the way on the operation. And then performance management, how managers gain insights into the data that they need to make day-to-day decisions. Okay, that has changed. It's no longer just relying on spreadsheets. It's no longer weighing in on how we can get reports and analytical data. Now you start to see tools in the BI space, Power BI, Tableau, data analytics. Spawning the new, I know there's a lot of sessions here about AI, chatbots, spawning intelligence to respond to people and to automate those processes and to give me insights, give me up-to-date data on what's going on out there. That is the transformation of operational processes, and that's the first pillar of digital transformation. When you get into business models, digitally modified business, changing the way business is conducted. I don't know how many people bought a house recently, but if you remember the first time you bought a house, your mortgage company came out, your lender, and they gave you this big pamphlet of information. It was a whole bunch of paper, about 58 pages altogether. The last time I did a contract like that, they came out with a tablet. They're changing the way they do business. They're incorporating technology into the way that they conduct business. They're looking for you leverage the internal tools, extend them externally, and change the way that they do their business. You see global opportunities arise. Break down the silos, commonalities, and consolidation of global services. HR is a good one to always say that we have a shared service, collaborative services, customer management services become a global shared service versus a siloed service, EU, UK, US, Asia Pac. New digital businesses emerge, and you see the ability to offer new services combinations. The best example I can give you here is a lot of in this room knows identity, consumer identity. This is the next thing that you see come out of digital transformation when you start looking how to offer combinations. How can I reach out? Leverage that technology to offer new services combinations. Parlay services together. I just don't get a new car anymore. I get a car that has OnStar, that has Sirius, has 4 or 5 different things in it, roadside assistance. They all come with the car. They're bundled services, yet that's a new way that they're doing a digital business. Customer experience. Understanding customer insights, the ability to digitally transform and to understand the main reason they're doing this is to increase operational efficiencies and make money. So the big pillar that they talk about is understanding how customers buy, how customers arrive at their site, why customers aren't selecting their product or services, why we have a difference in the market and why things are there to drive top line growth for that organization. Businesses are in business to drive shareholder revenue, to generate profit, and they want to drive top line growth. They want to leverage technology in those consumer interactions, okay? How many people have a Fitbit? How many people have any type of sports, Runtastic, anything? Notice that the app on the phone drives a result to a web page, gives you statistics, they advertise to you through it, they push information down to you, they say, hey, you did a good job this week, you hit 10,000 steps every day, awesome. They try to motivate you, and you see that that technology, the integration between it is driving that customer interaction to offer you services and a new way to interact with the customer. And just the way we interact with customers. How can we improve the way we interact with customers, and how can we drive that? Now, when you talk about changing the way you interact with customers, I may have called people before, I may have sent a mail before, now I send them email. Now I have a registration page, I let them a la carte services, they select what they want to do, they subscribe, I publish information to them, I communicate with them, I drive services in hopes that it drives top line growth. My marketing does a good enough job, drives interest, top line growth. All this technology, all these great enhancements. This is what your manager's desk looks like when it comes audit time. SOX, PCI, COBIT. Loads and loads and loads of spreadsheets. I work a full-time job, and I still have to do all this, okay? Don't forget the audit process. Not to be cliche, but people, process, and technology drives a solid architecture. And when technology takes over, which it has a tendency to do in the digital age with digital transformation, the processes like audit can be denied and can be starved and can really need some work. So when we talk about audit, what is audit? I'm not going to read you the definition. That's the definition of an audit. Okay? An inspection of data by an external independent party, blah. That probably means nothing to anybody in this room. Or I would propose a process or procedure that drives compliance results. You have a measurable result you want out of an audit. And that's where we'll focus on, okay? That audit comes in. When we talk about compliance, what is compliance? If I asked everyone in this room their view of compliance, I would get a multitude of answers. Compliance can be laws, regulations that are enforced on me. It can be standards that my industry employs, mitigating risk, my own CISO's patterns, practices, agenda, what we want to achieve, our policies adhered to, rules, standard reporting, and overall security posture. Okay? Compliance can mean many things to many different people when you say, I want to achieve compliance. At the end of the day, what we're really trying to drive is a net result to see who has access to what. And in most audits are conducted to identify, define, and prescribe the tip of the iceberg scenario. We run an audit because we think that a certain group has a certain permission to a certain resource, folder set, application resource, data set within an application, and what really happens without knowing and doing detailed inspection, who else has access to it, what's under the covers, and how deep does that go. And NTFS, love NTFS, inherited permissions. You can have a folder inside of another folder that you've double dog secured down that can inherit read for every one domain users on down, and it happens all the time. It's a misconfiguration of ACLs, access control lists, and it's very difficult to get an overview of who has access to what. So now that we've defined audit, let's look at the process. Manual. Operations are done through physical interaction. Time to complete is 1 to 30 days. Not uncommon in my travels to come across organizations. We ask them how they do their audit, and they are actually going to say, well, we have somebody come in, they sit down, they run an exploratory packet, they generate some data, they give us data to review, we make some changes, they run that packet again, they confirm the changes are made, and at the end of the day, 1 to 30 days later, we get a bill. So when you want to evolve and transition this, where some systems and critical systems can be automated, but you may have some manual systems that you still have to do. You will see enhancements and gains in the process. It's a transitional phase. That's why I don't say it's a permanent phase. You're either manual or you're going to be rationalized, but you are going to transition. You don't have to jump at this as one big project to get there. It is a journey you go on, and it is an effort to drive a goal with a result for you. Rationalized, proactive system and policy reviews. And how nice would it be when the auditors came in and said, we want to get your PCI compliance, we want to know your ISO 27001 compliance, just to every month print them a report and give it to them and say, go read that. There's my systems, there's my checks, there's my violations, there's my balances, there's everything you need to know about the exceptions, why they're there, who's approved them, all that historical data, and you have that in the audit printout for them. And that way they don't run an exploratory packet, they don't sit on your network, and they don't do things. So I put this in here because this is a good example of the manual process. We prepare. We know we need to do something. We've got a regulatory requirement that says we have to do this every quarter, every half of the year, or fiscally. So we prepare. We set our scope. Then we have to find somebody to do it. We have to schedule. Then we have the on-site framework defined, where these guys are going to sit, who they're going to talk to. They have the admin they need, the admin access. Can they do the view? They're going to launch an exploratory or Christmas tree packet, find every system, do a discovery process. They know what to do. Everybody knows what a Christmas tree packet is? TCP packet that they know Windows responds in a certain way, Unix responds in a certain way, Oracle responds in a certain way. And they find out how many systems you have, and then they begin to interrogate those systems, list those systems out, and they begin to version them, and then they scan those systems to look who has access on those systems. Are those systems hotfixed? Do they have the latest patches? Are they security compliant? Are they access required? And this is a very extensive discovery process, right? This tool usually runs over the weekend because it can congest network and servers. And then they take all this data, put it in spreadsheets, they review it, then they distribute it. And it winds up on your desk, and you got to check, sign off, attest to it, and validate that, in fact, the responsible parties are checking out that somebody has the right access. Then we have mitigation or changes in the systems that needs to be addressed. These 5 people don't need to be in this group. Domain admins group in Active Directory is a common one. Policy says we should have 5 people. Contractors get thrown in, service accounts get thrown in. Why are they there? Take them out, satisfy the audit, make the changes, drive the result we need. They validate that the changes are made. Everything's awesome. Compliance. Yay. Rubber stamp. Now, in this style of audit, in a manual process, what you've opened yourself up for is exactly that. Audit's over. Add me back into that group. Right? Until those guys come back in another period, 1 month, 6 months, 3 months, 1 year, you run in an out of compliance state. Your audit process is not helping you achieve compliance. It's not rationalized at all, and it's not driving the end result that you want. You just went through and paid somebody to come on site, launch exploratory, compile data, distribute data, check that data off and validate it, make system changes, and a week later, somebody's getting put back in the group. Okay? That is not a successful compliance. And the goal is to get in control and stay there. When I say get in control, you want to have a system that's going to ingest all your identity access data, data stores, applications, resources. And that system, in turn, is going to go ahead and drive a stay in control mentality. Okay? You would love to get to the point where you can detect, remediate security violations in real time. So, let's put some context around that. That scenario where the audit's over, we took the people out of the group, you add them back to the group. If policy said that these are the people who should be in a certain group, and that result of policy is driven and violated by a direct assignment or an admin going in and saying, yeah, I'll add you back to that group, no problem, Chris. Join that group. The minute that that's detected, because you're continually monitoring the system, the minute that's detected, you should be notified and have the ability to remediate. And at the point that you can do that, you are getting in control, you have a process that's helping you do that, and you're staying in control. Leverage automation to do this. And that is what a rationalized process. So when we look at the rationalized audit, now when we prepare and scope, we're looking at ready reporting out of the box. A complete audit log. Okay, when we talk about logging operations, who made the change? Why'd they make the change? What was the impact of the change? When was the change made? You want to have a full catalog of reports. Reports is another word I love because reports mean so many things to so many different people. Is that a system owner report? Is that an access report? Is that the auditor's report? Or is that my report card on how we're doing for a scorecard to meet a KPI, right? Full catalog of reports. And the reports should be across multiple areas, as we've outlined. Dashboards is another critical piece of preparing for a rationalized audit. Why do I have to wait through the report of an output if I'm in a get in control, stay in control delivery method? Why could I not just have this as my Tableau Power BI dashboard in the morning when I come in? I open up, I could see my compliance, I could see in risk, what my score is based on a scoring system I've established that I feel comfortable with, and I can basically assess my compliance in one quick view when I open a browser in the morning. Rationalizing the dashboards. And the ability for forensics and in-depth review. Okay? When we talk about rationalized audit, we're going to talk about a component of audit trail. Audit trail is going to include the following: a history of changes, okay? Breadcrumbs. When forensics needs to be done and you need to come in and you need to do reviewed analysis, the first thing that you're going to look for is policies. Okay? Policies drive results. Policies are based on criteria. You're in a group, you're in a location, you have a specific role, and a policy says you should have this resource assignment. It's continually evaluating, ensuring that because of those conditions I've defined for that policy, you do have access. So if that policy object gets changed, and I changed that policy object, instead of being everyone in Chicago, everyone in the US, and I accidentally put everybody in China in there. And now I've added the expansion of that policy for another 5,000 users in my organization that don't need access to that data. That's why you audit the policy. So the change, the policy is a living, breathing, results driving. And of course for identities. How did I get in that group? How did that user get in that group? Why was that access revoked? Object versioning, pick up, tear down, everything should be versioned every time I make a change to it for the optimal results in an audit trail. Now, when you talk about how the identities and the policies go, what are the workflows? What if I change the workflow step or the approval step? Okay, if I break that approval chain that flows into how someone gains access to a resource, what if I take a step out? I don't have a second level manager approval on there anymore. What if there's an invalid approval for a request? That's what that's going to help you mitigate. Access request. When was it submitted? Who approved it? What point was the access provisioned, or what time was it deprovisioned? How many workflow steps were there? What's involved? The who, what, where, when of that. And also the security incidents. Okay, accepting security signals into your audit, whether it be from a SIEM or from a service like Intelligent Security Graph, or something that's going to tell you something's going on with this account, the risk score is off, it's high, so we took action on it. Okay, and that action could be that we reviewed it, talked to the user, disabled the account, we did forensic review, we cleaned it up, we opened a case, SecOps and security has reviewed the incidents, and what they've essentially done is come back and said, it's okay. We've mitigated it. We're going to turn the account back on, re-enable it. You want all of that to be captured in an audit because that's what they're going to ask, right? This critical system had this access for a user. This user's account was suspended because it was on the dark web for whatever reason. We were notified of that. We suspended their access. These are the steps we took. And that way the auditor's like, okay, you're addressing it. When we talk about rationalized audit and policy, and we talk about the reporting, everything should be reportable. Policies can evaluate the business state, the rules, the controls, and the access rights associated to them. You want to review policies. You want to ensure you always have continual business alignment. When we say continual business alignment, go back to people, process, technologies. The reason IAM, IGA, IAG, all technology projects eventually will fail is if you don't have business sponsorship or alignment. So ensuring that the policies fit the business, the shoe fits the foot, is the exact same thing. You want to ensure that your continual business alignment's there. You also want, as an admin or an auditor or a compliance officer, to ensure that you have the desired output for controls. You want to ensure that continuous policy. If you remember, we're talking about get in control and stay in control. The whole premise of getting control and stay in control is so I've got a continual security posture that I can understand what's coming in through evaluation and evaluate threats and policy violations in real time. No gaps. With that, we're happy. We've achieved compliance and data integrity. So let's look at what reporting is essential for. Who's going to leverage reporting? SecOps, Security Operations Group, loves reporting. System owners. A good system owner would want to understand what's going on in their system, the apps, the systems they're responsible for. People managers. Do I have a good team, a bad team? Are they compliant? You could see an internal KPI in a security initiative to say, hey, let's see which managers, frontline managers, have the most compliant team or the team with the least violations. Give that team a team dinner. You know, as you can see, getting people involved in embracing these policies, embracing these processes, right? Because it's people, process, technologies, and regardless of what we think up, what technology we buy, people still have to use it. So at the end of the day, incent the people to use it. System admins, they're going to want to report. They always want to report. They want to know everything, right? Tell me all the widgets, the gadgets, how we get there. The auditor. Compliance officer, new role. Not every company may have it, but they're going to want to know, am I compliant over the apps? Are PCI apps compliant? Are my SOX apps compliant? Am I external SIAM? All the California residents, do we have CCPA policies applied? For my EU, do we have GDPR? For my New York, do I have NYPA applied? You want to make sure you have that. That's the compliance officer's job. Because they report to the CISO. They give them a report. That's a yes or a no question. Are we good or not? Yes, no, very binary. Up, down, 1, 0, okay? And that's what the CISO cares about because he reports to the board. So when we talk about compliance on demand, you want to have the following. You want to have the ability to answer who. And who can be a lot of different things. Who made the change? Who has the access? Who removed the access? What? What was the access to? Okay. Where? What location? When did this happen? What site? Where did that security incident come from? Was it my internal SIEM? Was it conditional access driving that change? Was it just the fact that a manager heard somebody say they were going to go ahead and format C:/ on the server? When? Date, timestamp. Enough said on that. Why? Why did we make this change? Why did they do that? Why did we disable that account? Why did we re-enable that account? How? What policy, what process, what interaction happened to drive that? How was this achieved? And this is for all identities managed, okay? So when you look at compliance on demand, this is the ability to literally look at every aspect and answer every one of these questions from multiple angles to achieve the results you want to. Now, with any good process, I would be leading you astray and giving you bad advice if I said every process is bulletproof, ironclad, and never had to handle an exception, okay? So even the best of processes has to have an exception built into it. And you can have allowable exceptions. I can say a resource can only have certain team members access it. In some locations, people go on vacation, people get sick, people have children, people leave, retire. All those conditions need to be evaluated. So if I'm not supposed to have that access, but I'm in a limited personnel situation, or I'm in a situation where I'm covering for somebody and access is delegated to a resource, I have the ability to request access and have an allowable exception. But you build that list of allowable exceptions. It's not free willy-nilly because I want it. It's because employees out on vacation, employees on maternal leave, on parental leave, employees on sabbatical. You build those conditions that they have to answer, and you hold them accountable for that. You want a notification for exceptions. When an exception happens, you want to have a process that is going to make sure that all of the responsible parties check off on it. It's not just I go down and say, hey, I'm going to go on vacation. I'm going to give you all my rights. You go, right, cool. Not how that works. The manager, the system owner, the security ops, and that may wind up as a report of exceptions that are approved on the CISO's desk. So he can answer for it, right? And you see how this all ties together in a rationalized process, because it's not just, hey, I'm going on vacation, take over for 2 weeks, I give you my domain admin rights. No, this is a process. People can put dates, expirations, times around it, and have those escalation paths defined. And of course, we're auditing, so we want to track these approvals. The who approved that? When did they approve that? For how long did they approve that? Is it still valid? When should it be revoked? Because you're rationalizing your audit and you're defining these policies, and I talked about the best architecture needing to be reviewed, and I did say that policies should be reviewed. Walk you through a process of how a policy should be reviewed. You see that we have a candidate policy and a production policy. So you're doing policy creation in this. You're going to create, modify, go into whatever system you're using, define it, configure the attributes, scope it, define where it's going to be applicable, and dial it in. Go through some review, preview it, put it to a test scope, make sure that test scope can access the resource, make sure that everything is where you want it to be, desired effects achieved. Stage. Let's test and confirm that. Let's give it the old taste test. Policy owner approval. Security sign off. So now you see that the policy object from the time it was created, modified, has gone through a preview, had its exceptions defined, it's been staged, it's been tested with a limited scope, and responsible parties sign off on it. And with that, a new policy is born. A policy comes in, and that policy becomes effective. But you look at all the people who've been involved in that policy process creation, modification, approval, or change. And you look at how it was modified, tested, vetted, scoped, approval sign off, and it's in the wild. And I say with this, when you have a rationalized process, you have no more audit spreadsheets to do. So if you remember my manager, about a stack of paper on the desk, looking beleaguered, sitting there, your managers will be happy, okay? Comedic interlude. We're going to be very short on time, so I'm at my conclusion. I will take questions at the end. But in conclusion, if there's anything I want you to leave with, is just understand that people, process, and technology all drive these changes. The people, as I said, have to buy in, have to adhere to the policies, have to participate. The processes have to be defined, have to be thought through, have to be tested, and have to be validated at a periodic time. They go through review too. You're not exempt as a process designer. And the technology needs to be configured to drive the results that ultimately help the business make those decisions, gain the insights, and achieve the level of compliance, whatever that compliance level may be for them. And don't forget the audit. With that, say thank you very much. I'll give you back a little bit of your day, but I know I see a lot of heads, a lot of questions. If there's any questions, I'll happily take them about the process, audit, digital transformation, any of it. Wow.
Have you seen any automated applications of collecting the who, what, where, why, when, and centralizing it with response?
If you look at who's collecting the who, what, where, when, why, when, usually you're sending that data out to a SIEM of some sort to do that analysis. And depending on where it's coming from, you do have integrations from the cloud. The best cloud option I've seen is Security Graph, which is taking all the Xbox, all the sign-ins, analyzing that data, giving your user a score. It drives conditional access to O365 services, and it can drive behavioral analytics inside of your organization as well. So, any other questions? Yes, sir.
Yeah, would you like share any examples and experience of like an audit shop that may have had the process manual to more automated one?
It's typically not an audit shop, it's how an organization embraces it. Okay, a lot of times we walk in and I see customers that have super great technology. We've got Slack running, we've got teams working, we're collaborating, we're driving great results. And they do get that stack of paper, right? They're not bringing that process forward. If you start to do return on investment and you look at analytics into how long it takes you in man hours for a manager to go through and to achieve that level of compliance, you'll see real quick that automating that process is going to save not only time, sanity, but money, and help and really contribute to the digital transformation, right, of the tooling and the technology that's being used to achieve a better result in the way we do business and interact with each other. Thank you very much. There's no further questions. Thank you.